All right, so we are, of course, absolutely live, and welcome to Intercultural Spark. Hello, and welcome to Intercultural Spark, that show about the spark inside you that drives you to spark change in the world through mission-driven businesses and life projects. Our guest today, I'm so excited. Her name is Lorraine Ladish, and she is the one who says, like, your best age is yet to come. She has built not one, not two, but three massive online communities through Viva 50, which is bilingual, through Lorraine Ladish, which is her own personal branding, and then also a yoga lifestyle and practice site as well. We are going to learn all about it, how she did it, and how she monetizes the website. But also, she is such a sharer. So we want to talk to her about, like, how do you share online and how do people respond? So I'm excited to get in that conversation. I am your host. I'm Deanna Schaas, the owner of Intercultural Talk. We are a digital, intercultural, and real-life marketing agency. And speaking of your best age yet to come, I work a lot with non-digital natives. So people didn't grow up with technology, but won't grow old without it. And everyone I talk to each week are all micro entrepreneurs or small business owners, which means they are people who run and own small businesses, but who are making a living and living lives and doing fascinating stuff, contributing to the world, like 20 million other micro businesses and small businesses in the world. So as usual, I always start with our flash exercise. And the flash exercise, in addition to being a marketer, I am a certified group fitness instructor. So I always like to do an exercise that connects to the theme of our show. So usually our exercise, I always say it's something you can do at your desk. Today, I've got something that you can do on your desk. So I hope that you'll, well, sure, join me. Put everything off your table, get on top of your desk. This exercise today is an adductor stretch. Adductor is your inner thigh. And so for this stretch, you've got modifications. You can either bring one leg in front. You're going to sit up straight. And Lorraine, we're going to let you try this with me in a minute, and you're going to come forward. If you don't want to modify, both legs are open again, inner thigh, and you just walk your hands forward, to get that stretch. So there you go. Today's flash exercise of the day is an adductor stretch. And Lorraine, at the end of the show, we're going to let you guess why I picked that exercise for you. And with no further ado, then, welcome, my friend, to Lorraine Ladish. I'm so excited that you're here.
I'm excited too. And that was a great stretch. I love it.
Do you like it? Oh, it feels so good. I might just sit that way for the whole show.
It is a great stretch.
Yeah. Well, can you tell us a little bit? I'd love to just know how. I know I talked about like not one, not two, but three. And I forgot to even mention that you've written 18 bilingual books. I mean, you really are incredible. And I'd love to know just a little bit like how you got started.
Oh my gosh, that's such a long question because I'm almost 60. I mean, I'm 58, 59 soon. And I've been working for myself since I was, full-time, like 20, 21. That's a lot of years. And I've always been a communicator. I've always worked with words in some capacity. So honestly, I got started way before the internet. And before the internet came around, I was an author. And that is how I shared my life experiences with books that got published with traditional publishers in Spain, where I was living at the time. I was also an interpreter of words in English and Spanish, Spanish-English. I was Cindy Crawford's interpreter, for example, when she traveled to Spain. I worked at the Olympics in '92 and many, many other very exciting things in retrospect.
Mm-hmm. How did you get caught up with someone like Cindy Crawford? I am thoroughly impressed when people name drop, more because I just wonder how, I'm always fascinated by how people's paths cross. So how did you end up being Cindy Crawford's interpreter?
Because I was a professional, and when they needed somebody who was bold enough to put herself out there in public and, I don't know, just do that kind of thing. I got interviewed along with other people,
Oh, with
and
other
I just
people.
did it. And I had zero experience doing that, by the way. It's like the story of my life that I've always done things before I was ready. The story of how I got online, because the thing is that when I remember my life before online,
Yeah.
it feels like online was already there. Like I don't feel there was in my brain. There's not a before and after the internet. Somehow, even when I recall my 20s, where I telecommuted and I worked for dubbing companies, where they dubbed English American
Oh, like the
sitcoms into Spanish.
telenovelas, but you did
No,
the
I did
Spanish side.
I did the American ones. I did a bunch of American ones,
Okay.
and I did them into Spanish.
Okay.
But I telecommuted doing that in a time where we only had faxes at the most. We didn't have cell phones, well, nothing. But I managed to convince the people that I was able to do that from a different city using couriers, which nobody uses couriers, I don't think anymore. And, with a typewriter and a VHS and beta video system.
What would you
things
do?
like that.
Record yourself? So
No, I was actually, I'm a wordsmith. I'm the person
got it. So you were
writing.
doing the
I'm the
writing part
one
of it,
doing the
not the
writing. Yeah.
talent. Okay.
So, so I was also a journalist. But not by profession, but by trade, in the sense that I got into journalism after I was a book author. Most newspapers don't like authors because if you didn't grow up as a journalist, they think that you're going to make stuff up, and I learned the trade and I was good at it. And I did that for a few years, even in the United States. The way that I got started
That's something
online.
that's a big deal, though. Also, though, with Spanish being your native language, and then
No, I grew up with both.
But you did. Okay. Yeah.
Thanks to my father. My mother's American, my dad's Spanish. I lived in the States. I was born in Spain between the ages of 1 and 5. I lived in the States, and then I grew up in Spain. But my dad, who is Spanish but speaks English perfectly, he got his PhD and studied here when he moved here when he was 16. He was adamant that my sister and I learned, well, actually we're 4 in total, but that we all learn English and Spanish. And he worked his butt off to send us to an international school. And so I studied in English and I studied in Spanish. And so I'm as good or as bad in both. I think I'm getting worse at speaking in any language as I grow older, but I've always spoken both.
So now at this point, though, at this point now you've got like tens of thousands of followers in your
500,000, but across all social media platforms, not just one. I don't rely on just one.
Okay. But that's obviously huge, because you were just about to say, so when you transitioned, it sounds like you were doing a lot of stuff. So what is your day-to-day? So that's a lot, though. You've got 3 platforms. You're on the social. What does your day-to-day look like of operating an online
It is so different. It's so different because I worked really hard all my life so that I could always be a freelancer, and so that I could be in charge of my day-to-day. I like to get up and know that I'm going to enjoy my day and build my day around, say, yoga or running, or I've been a fitness enthusiast all my life. And I have been able to work, like I work best at night. So I've been able to do that. I work at night and get up late, and then I'm not an early riser, and, just work around, like, when do I want to practice yoga? When do I want to work out? When do I want to do this? And build my days around that, and then work. Does that make sense?
How does it work? Now I'm curious, just as a fellow mom who's trying to do everything as well. How does that integrate? And because you have said, like, when I read your bios, like, it'll be like, social media content creator mom, like you share all those identities with what you do. How do you balance all that?
You don't. What happens is, that when my kids were born, I was already older. I was 37 with the first and 40 with the second. And so for me, it was like, I can't wait till the kids grow up, because then I'll be, I'm almost 60. And I couldn't wait 20 years to do my thing. So I just incorporated them into it. And when my eldest was little, goodness, I remember even breastfeeding and being at my computer because I had to work. I had to make money. And when the second one came around and I was already living in the States, I bought a big play yard where I sat inside of it, and I had my laptop, and the kids were just playing on top of me and around me. And I would just keep on writing my books. I would take them with me to TV interviews, to regular interviews.
Oh my gosh.
Once I had a gig as an interpreter, which I still did here and there. Now I don't do that. And I took my youngest, who was months old, in a backpack kind of situation. And I showed up in a suit and I acted like that was normal. I said, oh, the babysitter didn't come. I didn't really have a babysitter. And so I had to bring my kid. And it was a medical translation. And I just acted like it was normal to have a baby.
That's so funny. Just how did they respond? So
nothing, because I acted like it was normal.
I love that. So just because you were like, don't mind the baby on my back.
Nothing happened. Nothing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And even like when I've had interviews for, goodness, even for a gig where I had to go in person, I had one kid pushing the other kid and I'm there, getting bottles, but I never lose eye contact with the person I'm talking to. So then if I'm giving Cheerios to the kid, I'm still talking to them.
Oh my God.
So then, I've never had, because I never thought it was a problem. And then I also figured if somebody has a problem with me doing this, I don't want to work with them. And this is coming from someone, okay, who in 2008 lost everything. My marriage, which was not good, my sources of income, my savings, everything. And I was a single mom on welfare in the United States at the age of 45. And 46. So it's not like I'm this person who doesn't know what it's like to not have money. I know that. I know what it's like to have less than, and to have to file for bankruptcy, which carries a lot of shame as well. And so anyway, the point is that after that, I still took my kids everywhere. I had to. And the way I reinvented my writing career online was because I kept a blog that was not monetized. I didn't even know that you could make money.
Was it sharing a lot of just the personal things you were going through, or what was it? It
was more like I didn't even know what I was doing, because I knew how to write books. And someone told me, and I think I started the blog in 2006, and somebody said, why don't you start a blog? And I really didn't know what I was writing. But then when I was down and out, it was very hard I have a history of depression and anxiety and, clinical depression. And it was hard to keep myself going, knowing that I was in such a dark place. But I also had my kids, and I had to be okay for them and to, get out of that hole. So anyway, I wrote that blog. It was just daily entries, like success is not big success. Success sometimes is just getting out of bed, right? At least I feel that way. And eventually I pitched it to one of my publishers in Spain, and it was called Success Diaries. And I wrote it at the most unsuccessful time of my life, but it helped me pay the rent.
Sure.
And so when digital started getting a little bigger and Facebook started, and at least, being more of a everyday thing, and Twitter, etc., a lot of the people that over 4 years for the Palm Beach Post I had interviewed, and because I show up and I'm professional and keep my relationships going, they knew that I wasn't doing well. And they would be like, oh, Lorraine, there's this thing, that you might be interested in. They need a bilingual, whatever, a writer, this and that and the other. So at one point, like I started writing blog posts for a coupon company. I was getting paid peanuts. But I was happy because I was writing and I was doing it online. And then
so is that when you started with your monetization? Because you had said, like, I got this monetization. Did it start with actually selling your writing for online blogs?
Yeah, but it was serendipity. It was someone who asked me and said, oh, on Facebook, I saw you're a writer. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to, ask me to write something of significance. And it wasn't, but it was paying. And so thanks to that, and they said, but it has to be SEO friendly. I had no freaking clue what that meant.
Were you like, okay, no problem. And then you went and searched it?
Yeah. And I actually asked the guy, so I have no idea what that means. Can you explain it? And he did. And then someone gave me a lead for about.com, which was a site that then belonged to the New York Times. It doesn't exist anymore. And then
That was
bought
big
up.
for a long time, though.
It
That's
was.
where a lot of experts were just writing about, like, which
Yeah.
was your topic? Because they had, I know the woman who did
Latina
grandparents.
moms, Latina
What was it?
moms, Latina moms,
Okay.
Spanish moms.
Mhm.
So, but then here's the thing, that to get the gig that paid peanuts again, but for me, it was a lot. It was like $625 a month. And I cried the day that I got it because I wasn't making any money. But here's the thing, that to apply for that, you had to learn HTML, you had to learn SEO, you had to learn how to make a web page, you had to learn, well, I already knew how to write, but how to write for the web, blah, blah, blah. And then it was like a couple months, I want to say. Later, I think they made it easier. But
did you just tell them that you already knew how to do it? Or
no,
did you tell them
they,
you didn't know? And
it was a test, so they were like, can you do this or not?
Oh, and you were like, yes.
No, they just gave you the test. Like, first of all, you had to write. If you could write, then they're like, okay, now can you do all this other stuff? And I knew people who had not gotten the gig. And so I thought, if I don't make it, at least I'll have learned so much that alone is worth it. And I got the gig. And I got the gig. And then from there, someone asked me if I wanted to write for this other site. And this other site, they were dishing out a lot of money then for articles. Like, I don't know, I would get paid maybe from the $600 a month, $600 per article. And
that's amazing, because nowadays it feels like most people expect you to write for free, because there's
no, I don't do that. There still are sites that pay good money. And the good thing, though, is that I don't have to do that, because writing, if I want to write for someone, I'll do it because I want to.
Right.
Sometimes if you see my work somewhere, it's because I'm getting paid well.
Okay.
But the point is that I make enough money with my own brand that I don't need to do that.
But now you use other writers on your sites as well, correct?
Yes.
So do you mind if wait, look at me. So do you mind if I ask, do you pay your writers? Like, how do you do?
I do. Yeah. Not very much, but the thing is, I tell them what I pay. And usually there are people who have worked with me before, because before I had my own website, I was the editor-in-chief of other websites.
Gotcha.
So then throughout the years, I think one of the most important things is that when you establish yourself as a professional, when I went on at 50 to say, I'm going to launch something on my own again, and it's going to, be called Viva 50, and this is what I'm going to do and all that, I got work from the get-go because of the contacts I had. I wasn't starting from nothing.
How do you maintain, how do you maintain relationships with your contacts? Do you do it through LinkedIn? Do you send out stuff? Or is it more just
we become friends?
Relationship and
we become friends. I mean, I have, like, one of my fiercest editors is one of my best friends now. I just, I'm going to do something with a book that she just released, but she was my editor at babycenter.com, one of the biggest websites for parents, and I wrote for that, and she was a fierce editor. And then we became friends, and that's kind of it, And I keep showing up online, like I post on Facebook, on my personal one. Sometimes I'm just sharing what I'm doing now, because I know that sometimes out of sight, out of mind. But when I do something, I share it, not to show off, but because people who might want to give me work can see, oh, Lorraine just interviewed so-and-so, which I just did.
Wait, where was it? I want to see the your handstand. Look at you, though. You also are fabulous. I was thinking when you said for Cindy Crawford, they just looked at you and they're like, oh, her hair's like as gorgeous as Cindy Crawford's. Let's just hire her. Right? So you must have professional photographer. How do you do? Look at this.
My husband, who I met 13 years ago, he is a professional. He was all his life a photojournalist.
Oh my God, look at that. Oh, that's going to be next week's exercise.
Oh, goodness. So most of my pictures are taken by my professional photographer husband. This is an iPhone.
Oh, nice.
Picture, for example, this is an iPhone only. But it's funny because when we met, like, he's also an author. He used to work for New York Times as a photojournalist. He's traveled the world. I don't know. I could say so many wonderful things about him. Then when I started getting into this, we realized that we needed to bump up our game and that he would have to take my picture. A lot of people say I'm so lucky to have a photographer husband, but the first time he had to take my picture many, many years ago, 10 or more years ago, It was for Red Book magazine. And I was writing an article, and they wanted my picture, and then they were going to pay him to take my picture. And we had been together for a couple of years only. And so I said, oh, we're going to have so much fun and all that. And he said, yeah, for me, it's just work. I'll do it, but not with a smile. Yeah. I was so pissed off. I called Red Book and I said, you know what? My boyfriend back then is very ill. We need a new photographer.
That's so funny.
He lost the gig. And
wait, you fired him? That's really
did.
Funny. That's
and
hilarious.
So since then, we found that I had to be okay with him not being, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. And he had to be okay with my micromanaging and my telling him, because I know what's going on online. He was a great photojournalist, but he didn't really know what was needed for a client that was paying me money. You
had a sense for that. All right. I have to focus us because it goes so fast. We've only gotten to and then when you were 5, what happened? We barely scratched the surface, but there's a couple questions I have to ask you. And one of which, this has been so on my mind lately, this whole issue of, I'm going to try to frame it quickly, this whole idea of sharing vulnerability and sharing what's going on. Because I feel like everyone doesn't have permission to do that. And sometimes I wonder, is it all or nothing? Can someone have a business that's not about being out there? Can you serve clients and then also admit that you have self-doubt or depression or these kinds of things? And so I'm really wondering where that balance is. And also, Lorraine, I think that there's something, our generation, we didn't grow up sharing. Younger generations.
I did. So
that may make a difference then too.
Yeah, because my first book, which I published at 30, was my struggle with an eating disorder. And it was published in Spain, and I got a super bunch of coverage. National TV, and I'm not saying this to brag. I am saying this because my father was mortified. My whole family.
That's a good thing, though. That's part of it, though. I think sometimes we were like, do you share? There's other people. I've shared stuff and then have people write me and be like, I'm not comfortable with you sharing that story because I'm in it.
Here's the thing, though, that I've always said, and I did that in that book, and I do it in anything else I share. I share as much as I can until it starts being somebody else's story.
Right.
And that goes even for my divorce, which I've written about my struggles, but I have never given the details publicly because it affects my kids. They don't want me to share it.
Oh, for sure.
And I respect that. So if somebody comes in, people will know that I've struggled with a certain something, because I feel, to me, I have zero shame, honestly. I don't know why, but
how do you get to that, though? Because that's the problem.
It's my personality.
Wait, I'm looking for some little crumb of that might be replicable for people who are struggling with where that line is of sharing or not sharing.
I would just say that it's if for example, I don't mind saying that I'm having parenting struggles, and if somebody writes to me in private, I am okay telling them in private what's going on, but I will not publicize it on the internet until, for example, I'll give you an example. My eldest, who is now 21 and thriving and absolutely wonderful, at 16, my goodness, that was the first parenting challenge I ever faced, right? It was horrible. I developed IBS. But that saved me from cancer. Anyway, the point being that once my kid was over that hump, I asked her, do you mind if I write about it and post our pictures together? Because I'm sure it will help a lot of other parents and children. And she said yes, and she read it. So
you
and
asked first too. It does make a big difference.
But of course I do. And even when I published my first book, my family saw the galleys, the first proofs, and I would never divulge something that would, how would I explain this? Even if, let's say my dad said something terrible to me when I was younger, right? And we now have a wonderful relationship, but that happened. And I see a lot of this happening now where people are like, well, my parents are the cause of my trauma, so I need to address this. I need to explain exactly why that's in public. I don't believe that. I don't think I should be giving my dad a hard time when him and I in private have already sorted this out. Maybe when he's long dead, which I hope is a long time coming, I might feel free to share things like that, but I don't feel that I should be hurting people who have, who I have already resolved this with in person. And even if I haven't, for example, with my ex-husband, I don't think it's beneficial to my kids, for example, that I disclose certain details. You know, it's just, I think it is a very personal thing. And I once wrote something about my own mother and got attacked, but it wasn't something about her. It was my feelings when I was a kid about growing up without a mother and what I thought at the time. And the article started with, when I was a kid, I often wished that my mother were dead. Okay. That was taken out of context because I was not saying that I wished now that my mother were dead. It was like, it would be easier to deal with the concept that my mother was non-existent than with the fact that my mother was absent from my life. That is what I intended. And most people understood it, except someone who sent the article to my mother. And so, you know, and my mother and I are actually estranged. So it's, this I don't mind saying, but
now because of that though, or just
no, hell no, because of my life, and but what I mean is that I was expressing my feelings, and that had nothing to do. I think there's an important, and yoga helps me with that, is separate facts and feelings. You can feel something about anything, and the facts might be exactly the same and your feelings can change, but nobody can argue with your feelings.
So that's that idea. Like
to your answer, to your question, that was, my business is me. So when I'm hired by a brand, and this is the important thing to differentiate maybe to how you work or how small business owners of different capacities might work. I am hired for my personality. And I'm not hired for my personality as well, which means that if somebody hires me, they know what they're getting. If somebody doesn't hire me because they don't like the way I handle myself online, then they're not hiring me. And
they're not going to hire you.
But that's fine because I want to feel comfortable with the brand I'm working with. Now, if I were doing something entirely different, being an accountant, for example, then that's a whole other story. Then maybe I would have a separate account for my brand, for my accounting business, and then I would have my personal account, which might be private.
But do you really think you can keep stuff separate? I mean, I feel like we're like
I do. I do. Well, I even have like Viva 50 is Viva 50, and it's not Lorraine. You know, I could sell that, and it wouldn't need to be me. You know, it's different. It's different.
And that's more about the kind of post 50 bilingual community.
Yeah, I mean, now I've been, just because I'm lazy about that, I've been partnering with myself from my personal account here, just because I didn't have the bandwidth. And I have people help me, but you know, sometimes I go with the flow. And when, for example, right now Instagram is more important than other social media platforms, then I kind of tone it down over there, and then I amp it up here.
Are you finding a lot of people over 50 are now going to Instagram? Because for a while, everyone was staying on Facebook, but you said for lifestyle,
I find a lot. I mean, I see it in my analytics. I don't have to go very far there. I think it's a myth that, because you know, when I look at myself, I'm like I don't see myself as someone who's going to turn 60 next year, right? And the way I behave, the way I know about social media, the way I'm getting information about this all the time. And when people ask me, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm an influencer. You know?
No, you totally are.
But I make a living doing it full time. Yeah. And this is, I think the biggest misconception is that people, because they're like, well, if I didn't grow up with the internet, I can't learn it. That is, I call BS, because if I can do it, anyone can, honestly. You just have to want to. Right. Just like you have to want to learn a language. Say it again, sorry.
No, I said, or find someone. Sorry. That was like such an invitation for me to give a gratuitous plug for my business. I'm so sorry.
No, but of course.
I just have to stay 10 minit's ahead of my clients. You know, that's where, because that's what I do. Is because if you can't be found online, you sort of don't exist.
You don't.
So it's, you know,
I mean, here's the thing. Like where I live, sort of Florida, nobody knew who I was until maybe right in the pandemic when I decided to use local hashtags. And I was very comfortable with that because I have never worked with a local brand. Actually, maybe one, but it's a big brand that happens to be here.
Yeah.
I work with big brands, okay, that have
What do you
lots
do
of
when
money.
you work? We only have like a minute left, but when you work with a brand,
I
do
can
they
be
have
a
you
brand ambassador.
Okay.
I can be a brand ambassador. I could be doing fitness videos. I could be creating content for their apps. I could be posting something on Instagram. I could be, like I just did, interview Lou Ferrigno for something that I can't disclose what it is yet, and get paid. And a lot of things doesn't even make it. A lot of things don't make it online. But the thing is that this is not my hobby. This is my full-time job, being online.
And it sounds like 24 hours a day. So I can't believe it. We're actually at the spot where you have to tell me if you can guess. Oh, don't be sorry. It's fascinating. So we are the flash exercise. So I can't redo. I'm not going to re-demonstrate it. I hope that you did it as well. I'm looking to see here. Here's that's so funny. Here's the standing version of what I. Oh wait, no, I was looking for your pose. The standing version of what I did is kind of that one right there. Why did I pick that exercise for this show? So it's always, like I said, interpretive aerobics. It's all about you and what you're doing. Why did I pick my adductor stretch for this show? Can you guess?
I don't know. I have a few pictures of that in my Instagram, but I don't know.
So many reasons. One, because it felt like it fit in context to show you the one stretch, speaking of being almost 60 soon, that I can still do. You are a yoga instructor, so that's sort of yoga-ish. But the other reason is that you had shared that in 2008, you basically fell on your face. So that folding board was like falling on your face, and like everything kind of fell apart. And then you came back up stronger and more flexible and ready to, that's really it. You fell on your face, you came back more flexible, stronger, just ready to take on the world. That's why I picked that exercise for you.
Thank you.
I told you it's the deeper meaning of fitness and aerobics. Who knew?
Yeah.
You are so fabulous, Lorraine. Thank you so
much for
spending this time with me. I just loved it. And I hope maybe again we can because we barely got, no, we got a lot, actually. We got a lot of depth. It's just with you, there's so much depth because you're doing so much and are such an amazing influencer. And I know I'll say it again, and you look fabulous. So, you might as well be that. Definitely, it helps to be that inspiration you are to other people. So thank you to everyone. If people want to find you, I'm going to put, so we've got on social, your personal, but also the Viva 50, the bilingual post 50 community. I mean, thank you so much for being on Intercultural Spark. It was just a delight to know you and to speak with you.
Thank you always.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.